Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, January 28th. It's about 10 o'clock. It's a cool morning. It's in the 50s, low 50s outside. We had a couple of inches of rain this last week, but no real bad storms over here in my Zone 9A garden. And we're just starting out inside because I had a couple of things I wanted to show you. First off, you may remember that a friend had given me one of these amaryllis that had been coated in wax, and I took the wax off and potted it, and you can see it's fixing to bloom, and it actually has another bloom there. Seemed like once when I took the wax off, it sent up that flush of leaves all at once, so it's a happy camper. Also here I have next to my cup of coffee, I have a hyacinth in full bloom. I got a hyacinth in a bulb vase from Aldi's a couple of weeks ago. And I don't have a lot of, I have luck with them, but they don't seem to perform as well for me as they do in magazine pictures, because they send the bulb up nicely or the flower up nicely, and then as soon as the flower gets up, it leans towards the sun one way or the other, and eventually winds up falling out of the little vase that it's in because the roots don't hold it in. So what I did is it just got so tall that I was positioning it 2 or 3 times a day. I just decided to cut the flower and enjoy it that way. And I'll plant the bulb out in the yard. Here you can see all of my potted plants are doing well. I've been watching a lot of programs, gardening programs that, of course, people up north can't really garden much outside because of the snow, although you could be doing pruning of fruit trees and things like that. So I've been seeing a lot of houseplant hauls. And have you seen the price of houseplants recently? Oh my goodness, I just could not believe the prices. What used to be $10 or $12 4 or 5 years ago is now $50. And here's my bit of wealth management for those of you that are still working. I'm retired, and I developed this attitude when I went back as a contractor after I retired, and I was getting paid an hourly wage. But the secret to wealth management is figure out what your hourly wage is. You ought to know. And for the sake of ease of calculation, say it's $15 an hour. Okay. After taxes, that's $10 an hour. So you're working basically for $10 of spendable cash an hour. Now you do the math. You see a beautiful philodendron and it's $60. Is it worth 6 hours of your time to buy that plant? I can't answer that question for you, but I know it's not for me. So that's the secret of saving money. Ask yourself, do you really need that plant? Is it worth me working for it? Having said that, let's move on. We'll go outside. Whew. Here you can see the cyclamen. I love these white cyclamen. They really have large flowers. They got a little beat up from the rain, and they do kind of face downward, but to me they kind of remind me of the Phalaenopsis orchids. You can see the frost really got the wandering dude, but coming up through it are some of the bulbs that I have planted. You can see them poking their heads up. And actually you can kind of see here how the frost affected the wandering dude. Here it's turned to mush, but yet new sprout, new sprout. In the back, new sprout. They were all exposed to the same weather, but some got killed by the frost and others did not. I didn't mention last week I cut all my bananas down, and here you can see what bananas do when they're still living is they'll send up new stalks. Typically, once when they die, like this one was the one that had the flower, and so it's not going to come back. It'll usually send up pups from the base, and that's where all of this came from. I only had one banana here originally planted probably about, oh, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. But you can tell these other bananas are sending up shoots. They're still actively growing, and unless we get a frost, they will continue to send those shoots up. The Kimberly fern got killed back to the ground, but it will come back. You can see the winter rye is looking luxuriously green. This is really the only time of the year when I have a luxurious lawn because all of the weeds are pretty much dead, or at least dormant for the winter. And the winter rye will look good probably till about March or April. Now's when you really can see the evergreens of the garden. You can see that cycad. The frost has caused it to become variegated. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I will cut it back. It didn't seem to bother the flowers. It did when we had the hard frost. It killed the flowers that were open, but yet the flowers that were not open so far don't seem to show any signs of damage. That's variable. It depends on the particular plant. See, here's another one of these cycads. This is unsexed yet. I don't know if it's a male or a female. It's too young. But there you can see the new growth in the center. So once when you see that new growth start to shoot up, that's when, if you want to, you can trim the dead leaves off. You don't have to trim the dead leaves off. It's just a looks thing. It won't hurt the plant to have the dead leaves on there. The frost did take all of the blossoms of my tea olives and all of the blossoms of my azaleas, the encore azaleas, but they will come back. You can see there's a lot of buds on my Rose of Sharon. Frost isn't going to hurt that. Oh, and I'm getting the first openings of my high fragrance camellia. Hopefully by next week there'll be a flower there. Uh-oh. Well, not uh-oh, that's a good thing. I see all the peanut butter is gone from my little bird feeder. I do have a bunch of birds that come here and eat. Now's when you really see when the frost has killed things back. You can see the bulbs starting to come up. Here you can see the line of bulbs really in the middle of the bed. That used to be the front of the bed at one time. They're little miniature daffodils. Still have a little bit of dill coming up. Sage is still here. Still have plenty of curly leaf parsley. If I ever started parsley from seed, if I had the patience, I remember Bellingrath Gardens in the wintertime used to do borders of curly leaf parsley. And it looks really pretty. In other words, instead of the border grass here, they would have rows of curly leaf parsley. It does look really nice. However, goes back to that $1 per hour you make. They're expensive plants. Versus I get the monkey grass for free. This, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It certainly does not look too promising, my Australian tree fern, but I'm not giving up on it yet. Some of the croziers in the middle, like that one, still appears to have green in it. So as long as there's green, there's hope. Now these African iris, however, they look to be a little the worse for wear. Too early to tell, kind of have to wait until they start showing new growth. This cordyline, it's not going to be killed, but it may be the same thing with the African iris. They're not going to be killed. They'll just be frozen down or dead to the ground. They'll come back from the roots. Here you can see the frost has done a little pruning on my Satsuma. Oh, and here's one of the amaryllis that I potted out. That was for the first batch that I had in the house. And a couple of them didn't bloom until now. I mean, that was way back in December that I put them straight out as they came out of the pot. I plant them in the ground, and they sent up a couple of new buds because they hadn't bloomed when I had them in the pot. I did have a pot in the front porch. I don't remember if I showed them to you or not, but that's my third potting, and it's doing well. Here are my Lenten roses. I don't know why, but this particular Lenten rose sent up flower buds, and they were nipped, but it was kind of dead before the frost. Frost usually doesn't bother it. As can be witnessed by this Lenten rose. This one is just absolutely full of flowers. Doesn't show up all that well, but it's a beautiful flower. This Lenten rose I've had for many years in a pot. I brought that from my New York garden, and because they thrived up in New York, I had planted a small piece like that, and 2 or 3 years later it was probably about 3 foot across. It just spread so quickly. That's why I took this one to come south with, and it's the first time in 5 years you can see a flower bud coming. The trick was finding the right location. When I put that Lenten rose there and it did so well, I decided to move the other one that I had and put it here. And so they apparently like this location. It has just enough sun, just enough acid in the soil. Well, all of my soil is acidic. Don't know, but it didn't grow anywhere else, or it didn't bloom anywhere else. Here you can see the buds coming on my, they're going to be double white daffodils. The flowers are, they're going to look like paperwhites, only they've got double flowers on them. And here you can see the frost, again, hasn't done a lot of damage. You can see a little damage to one petal. But the camellia flowers are still looking good. Here's a nice looking camellia flower. This is camellia season. This grouping looks particularly nice. Now you can see the double or semi-double that I was telling you about with the yellow stamens in the middle. I have 4 of those. This bed I'm going to work over. Here you can see this is what the spider lilies look like. I think I showed you a couple of the spider lily blossoms. I have a circle of them around this bed, but typically they're hard as heck to establish. It may take 7 or 8 years before they bloom, but you can see how nice and green they are, so it's just a matter of time. And there's Miss Baby, hungry. I will feed her, but not just yet. I put a bowl of food out. I am feeding another feral cat. It's black and white, kind of, I call it a tuxedo cat. I don't know if it's a male or a female yet. So heaven forbid I should call it by the wrong pronoun. So in any event, I'm waiting to verify, and then I will give it a name. Here you can see my bougainvillea. I watched one show this week where a couple of gardeners up in New York were thinking, they came down south and saw how beautiful the bougainvillea is, and it is a beautiful flower. However, when it's dormant like this, now you can really see what the thorns look like. That's why I like to keep mine out of the flow of traffic. You know, you have to step into the flower bed really to touch it. Nothing wrong with it, beautiful plant. It just has thorns. Roses have thorns too, and people grow them. Here's some more of my daffodils. This is the only daffodil, I don't remember the name of it, that naturalizes for me. I bought only about 6, probably now about 20 years ago or so. And it has just multiplied and multiplied, and I keep moving them around in different places. I haven't found a place that it doesn't like. I wish I remembered the name of them. Here you can see the plants are back out on the deck. I cut this angel's trumpet down. It looks pitiful, but because of the bananas that used to be overhead, remember I cut the bananas down, it grew leaning way out to the front, and so I pruned it back so that it would sprout out again. That is my backup in case I don't have any whites that carried over, because the frost might have killed them all the way to the ground. That kills them to the ground. They should come back, but in case it doesn't, I have a backup. Here you can see more cyclamen. These, of course, were brought in for the cold, as was the pitcher plant. And here's where I keep my species amaryllis. And this other thing that I can't remember the name of right this minute, I'll put it in the subheading there. It's in the amaryllis family. I can see it in my mind, I just can't spit it out. The other one that sits there is in the front porch because it has a flower stalk, and I like to enjoy them in the front porch. Sarracenias are doing well. Of course, they were brought in from the cold. The equisetum, or horsetail, that was not brought in from the cold, and the lowest it got here was 20. It never got below 20 according to my thermometer, which is right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm not going to go back there because the deck is a little slippery, but that's where the measuring device is. So it possibly did get a little lower than 20. But that's what I registered. It didn't seem to bother the equisetum any. Now the cordyline, it did kill back. That will come back. It's just killed to the ground. This is what Plumeria looks like for the next 4 or 5 months, when the leaves fall off. They don't get new leaves until pretty much the summer. So if you like that look, definitely try growing Plumeria. It is worth it though, because the flowers smell fantastic. It's also known as frangipani, kind of an almondy smell. And here's my big haul from Walmart. I had told you that they get hyacinths this time of the year. I'm going to put them in that little bricked-in circular garden by the garage. And they have really shot up because I just bought them last Monday and they were barely coming out of the pots. So in 1 week they shot up very quickly, so they'll probably be in full bloom for next week. Now I have to be extremely careful going down this deck because with all the rains we've been having, it can be slippery. Got to be careful I never come out here with bedroom slippers. You need shoes with some kind of ridges on the bottom. Here's a little bit of frost damage on the Fatsia, but all of the new growth is fine. So It's amazing what gets killed and what doesn't. But again, even if it killed it back to the ground, it wouldn't necessarily kill the roots. Although I don't want to brag too much because you never know. Let's see what the... Oh, there's the ladyfinger palm. That's the small one I bought last year. It's got some frost damage. I had covered that over with the plastic. But you see the new growth, although scarred a little, is still light green, which is a good sign. And how about the big ladyfinger palm? Rhapsis something or other. This one, you can see the new growth again has some brown edges, but as long as you see that bright green in there, it's going to be okay. These others have turned an olivey green. Too early to tell if they'll recover or not. It's possible they'll just turn yellow, wither, and die. But at least the plant has survived another winter so far. Ginger lilies have died back to the ground. I will be cutting them back. I'd like to look ahead to see if there's going to be any predictions of cold weather, because they are actually, although they're brown and yucky looking, they are protecting the roots in the ground from further frost damage. So if you cut them back and then you get some more hard frost, you could kill the entire plant. So kind of use your own judgment when it's time to clean it up. And this all kind of looks the same. Blueberries have great buds all over them. I hope they're going to be flowers. I have had a couple of blueberries, but that's about it. You have to share them with the birds. And here's the little stick that is a pecan that God gave me. Just happened to sprout up in that spot, and I kept it there. Miss Baby comes to visit, but usually there's food out front. But now with Oscar and the feral cat, they've gotten friendly enough that they share the same bowl because they know I give them enough food for the two cats, but they don't leave any extra for Baby. Now, Baby does live next door, and she gets fed very well next door, but she likes to come here and eat here as well. But right now the bowl is empty. And I did have to laugh because the black and white cat, the tuxedo cat, is a little bit smarter. Oscar is big and ginger and dumb. Not that any of those go together, but he's not the brightest bulb in the box. But they had a standoff over the food a couple of weeks ago because the feral cat was starving or very hungry and wanted the food, and Oscar, he eats all over the neighborhood, which is why he's so big and fat. But they were growling at each other right over the bowl, and I had to laugh because the tuxedo cat took his paw, grabbed the bowl, and moved it about 6 inches towards itself and dove into it, and Oscar was absolutely flabbergasted. He reared up on hind legs and was flailing his paws around. He never thought of anyone pulling the bowl away from him before. Usually what I'll do is, since I know the cat's coming, I'll put an extra bowl out, but you don't always know with the wild cats if they're coming or not. Oh, here is La Peppermint. A little bit of frost damage, but plenty of new buds. The same over here, plenty of buds, but there's a lot of frost damage on that. Looks like some of the other buds are not too bad. Oh, there's another one of those ones that sported back to the plain old puce color that I'm not crazy about. Although I do like that color. It's a little bit more towards the watermelon side of things. And it is a beautiful flower. Let's see if I can put my hand next to it so you get an idea of size. It is rather large. So there you have it for today. I hope you all are well. And next time you see me, I will have planted those hyacinths in that bed over there, and hopefully plant something else there and straighten up the sundial at the same time. So until next week, have a good one. Bye-bye.